Well, I'm a child of the 80s. I just felt like you left a lot of 80s stuff off the table, and I was upset. You were in so many movies, and I wanted like Action Jackson, Irreconcilable Differences. I know you have Seagal stories. Like, you were in a movie with Seagal, but like so Irreconcilable Differences, which there's no record of. It does not exist. It doesn't stream anywhere. It's not on cable.
The only thing about Seagal is when he told me not to stand in his chi.
Yeah. I don't even know. What does that even mean? What's your chi?
I mean, honestly, there really isn't anything else about him. He's not really interesting, you know? He's just kind of like, that's about all there is for him. Like, don't stand in my chi. Like, dude, who wants to, you know? Who wants to get that close to you? You know what I mean? Like, stand in your own chi, and thanks for letting me know. So that's about it. Nobody wants to stand in your chi. Thanks.
It's so crazy that everyone who's basically crossed paths with him has some terrible Seagal story. He really did seem like he was the worst for like 10 years there.
That's about it. I'm not standing in your chi.
Yeah. You know? Wait, so go backwards. So Irreconcilable Differences. Ryan O'Neal, Shelley Long, Drew Barrymore as their child. They have such a bad marriage. She wants to be she files for emancipation. It's a divorce movie. I was a child of divorce, so I loved it. But you're in that movie. You play this. I haven't seen it in forever. I'm vaguely remember, but you're like this aspiring actress. Ryan O'Neal's the director. He falls for you. And that was when you splashed on the scene, and you were great in that movie. And so for the next, I don't know, 6-7 years, I kind of had the Sharon Stone season tickets kind of waiting for your moment. And then it finally happened. And it wasn't until 1991 when it really happened.
You and me both. I mean, I had really hoped that someone would notice my comedic chops, but you know, it's really taken a long time for people to think that I'm funny.
Yeah, that movie was good. I really, actually, I think it's weird that there must be some sort of studio. You know, anytime movies disappear, I always assume studios are suing each other, or somebody got left the movie and they can't, whatever. But yeah,
somebody
so you
had a bug up their bum.
Yeah, something like that. But from that point on, you're in the mix for in the 80s. You're popping up. You're always Total Recall. I think was probably the most efficient use of you in like a gigantic movie. But you were there for 9 years. I wasn't surprised when Basic Instinct happened. Was my point.
I was trying. I was really trying. But you know, it's very hard to get through the door. It takes a lot of work to get through the door. You know, if you're really not from here, it takes time.
Was there a movie that you thought this was going to be it, and then it didn't happen? Was there one that you latched onto, or like, this will be the one? This is it. After this, I'm set.
No. I really felt that if I got Basic Instinct, that would be it.
So you didn't think until Basic Instinct this was going to happen?
No. I mean, I really thought that Total Recall was going to give me a lift because, you know, it was such a cool script and Arnold was such a badass and it was a great opportunity to work in a big movie. And, you know, I did think that was going to help me. And Arnold was such a great help to me. I mean, he really taught me how to do PR.
Yeah.
You know, and he was great at that. And, you know, I worked really, really hard. I put on 20 pounds of muscle. You know, I worked on martial arts. I did everything I could do to be really good at it, to really understand what was happening. You know, I really tried to get it, to understand, to be my best. And it really was the movie that broke me because it was the same director that did Basic Instinct. So ultimately, it really was the movie that launched me.
I didn't realize until I read the book that you did this you're basically like a baseball player coming back from the off season with 20 pounds of muscle. You're hitting home runs. Like what were you doing? Like protein powder? Were you using creatine? How far did it go? Were you steroids and HGH? Where did you draw the line?
No, I used protein powder and I went to a gym and I was deadlifting and, I went to this gym called Eaton's Gym, which was like a real musclehead gym. It wasn't a fancy gym at all. It had fans and fish tanks and old crank bikes, not even like modern bikes. And, you couldn't talk in there. The guys would throw you out. It was like really an old fashioned setup. And then, I did karate 3 days a week. I just really worked hard. I did it the old fashioned way, where you work really hard and make it happen. And I was single arm curling 35 pounds. By the time we shot, which was a lot of weight for me. And, I was deadlifting and I was, working with Arnold's stunt guy, on the karate every single day. And we were in Mexico City and, it was the real work.
Well, you're going, you're going to have a scene where you have to fight somebody who's the most imposing, biggest person in the world, basically, at that point.
Exactly. And that's intimidating enough to get your butt to the gym and get you moving. I mean, when you're going to have to be filmed fighting with Schwarzenegger, like there's a D-Day and it's coming for you and you better get your ass in gear.
Well, it's funny. I mean, Hollywood wasn't working this way in the late 80s, but if somebody even saw your performance in that, it was so obvious that if we had movies the way we have now, you clearly just would have immediately been in some sort of superhero movie playing.
I love superhero movies.
Yeah, you would have been the female badass. I don't know, Black Widow, whatever it would have been.
I love action movies. I mean, my kids and I love action movies, and I love martial arts movies. I can't watch enough kung fu movies.
You missed your calling. Where were you living in LA as you're doing all these movies, TV shows? Because you're popping on the TV show type stuff too. Where are you? Are you in Hollywood? Are you just bouncing around? What are you doing?
I first came here and I got, of course, because I'm from Pennsylvania, which is, the snow and slush center of the world.
Yeah.
I came out here. I didn't know anything about LA. So I got an apartment in the marina because I thought, oh, there's water and there's, boats and it's also great. But because I didn't really get the marina at that time, I thought this is it, and I didn't realize it was kind of like the Trans Am capital.
Right.
Of LA, and that you switched your fireplace on with a light switch. I didn't really quite at first. I didn't really get it. So it was January, and I was on my little porch in my bathing suit, and everybody was like, "What is with her?" Because
what a weirdo.
Oh my God, it's 58. I can't believe it. I'm getting a tan. I thought this was really living. So at first, I moved to the marina. And then I moved to South Beverly Hills, which was really sweet, very, very sweet. And, cause I could walk everywhere and I felt very safe there. And it was really nice for me in those older kind of, pre-war kind of lovely buildings.
So were you in that vortex where it's like, this is going to happen it'll be interesting to see what role it is, but you couldn't see it, but other people could? Because I'm just living on the East Coast, and there was like a couple of people. There's you, there's Kelly Preston, there's a couple other ones where it was like, why aren't these people bigger stars? I don't get it.
Well, I didn't feel like anybody got it. I just kept trying and trying and trying and, hoping and praying and, wishing and wanting. And, it was really hard. And I did, Basic Instinct was my, I think, 13th, 18th movie. I'd done so much stuff before this happened.
Right.
And, God, I'd done a ton of TV and, I'd been modeling in New York. And when I came out here, there wasn't modeling, so I was modeling for the May Company. I was doing lingerie ads for the newspaper to pay my rent and eat. And, there were a lot of weeks when, I was living off a loaf of bread and a dozen eggs. I ate a lot of scrambled egg sandwiches, Yeah,
you have in the mid 80s, you got like TJ Hooker, Police Academy 4, but then you have the classic Action Jackson, Above the Law, back to back, which was, I think, two movies that have still held up. As much as we've turned on Seagal, I think both of those are good ones. But then Total Recall was going, all right, this is definitely going to happen. I remember liking Year of the Gun, But then all of a sudden, 92, Basic Instinct, and it felt like you were like the biggest star in the world. Because it had happened 2 years before with Julia Roberts when she did Pretty Woman, where it was like this person went from, oh, I've seen her in a couple things to, wow, that's all right, that's the biggest star in the world. And then it happens for you. The one part you didn't really have in you had some of it in your book, but like, when did you actually realize that was happening? Because you're in the middle of it. So it's kind of hard to like levitate above yourself and see like, oh shit, I'm now an A+ lister.
Basic came out on a Friday. And on a Tuesday, I was driving up Sunset Boulevard and I stopped at a stoplight, and people climbed all over my car. And
oh my God.
I couldn't see out. And the light changed and people started blowing the horn, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Was I supposed to drive forward with people all over the outside of my car and my windshield? Was I supposed to scream and cry? Was I supposed to try to get out of I just didn't know what I was supposed to do. And that's when I realized, oh, this thing has really gone bananas. And that's sort of when I started recognizing that, oh, this has really gone banana.
Fame was different back then because I think we had less stuff. Now it's like everyone's spread in a million different directions. Back then it was like movies, TV, music. If you it hit in this way that was, 30, 40 million people, it felt like.
Cell phones didn't take pictures.
Yep.
So there were just paparazzi and people chasing you down the street.
And that's it. Trying to get you in like Us Weekly or People Magazine or one of those spots. Did you know as you were making the movie that it was going to be as big as it did, as it was? Because I still feel like it's a classic.
I did. I really did. I auditioned for it for 8 months.
Right.
So I was pretty clear that they weren't messing around.
We did a rewatchables on it. We have a podcast called The Rewatchables where we rewatch old movies. We do like break it down, do all these things, little research on it, all that stuff. And one of the big points I was making was like, it's one of those movies / performances. It's hard to even imagine other people in it. Like I felt like Body Heat with Kathleen Turner was like this too, right? Where
oh yeah.
And by the way, you two could have flipped those movies at the points of your career and probably, Time Machine, you could have gone back in 91 and been Body Heat in 1982 and vice versa. But it's just so hard to think of that many performances where it's like, I can't imagine anyone else in that. Out of the modern actresses, if you had to pick somebody, who would you pick out of the new breed, or is there nobody that you could see? Because my go-to for this was always Scarlett Johansson for years, but now I don't know if there's like a slightly younger.
Kate Winslet could have played this part.
100%.
She's one of the greatest actresses alive.
Yeah.
I think I'm always hard to say her name. Saoirse.
Oh, Saoirse Ronan? Yeah.
I think she's just a genius, and could probably do that. But there's, because it's a weird part. You have to have that sense of sort of, yeah, I think both of them could probably pull it off.
Yeah, it's tough because I have to like you. I have to be afraid of you. I have to be attracted to you.
And and there has to be the actress has to have that understanding of the psychological element. They have to have a certain kind of the French call it sang-froid.
Mm.
It's cold-blooded, but there's this warmth to it. There's a weird warmth to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have Douglas, who's at like the peak of his powers at that point. Like he's on this incredible 6-year run of every movie he's in is just a monster.
Yeah. Well, he is just a monster performer. I mean, he is still killing it in the series he's doing right now. The Kaminsky Method. I mean, he knows exactly what is right for him at each point in his life.
But he initially didn't want you because they wanted somebody bigger.
I don't think it was specific to me. I never took it personally.